Good morning. This is Scott Fletcher.
Danny, your microphone's a little hard to hear. You may want to fix that before we begin.
Is this any better, Drew?
Yes, perfect.
Is my sound better now?
Yes, it sounds great, Danny.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, the time is 10 o'clock. The meeting is recording, and it appears that we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Bella. Let's get these things rolling. I hereby call to order this meeting of the Arizona State Boxing and Mixed Martial Arts Commission. Today is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025, and the time is 10 a.m. Would those commissioners that are in attendance please identify themselves and state as to whether they are here in person, via telephone, or via Google Meets?
Commissioner Carpio is here. Commissioner, if you're trying to speak, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I was on mute. This is Commissioner Alex Carpio. I'm present on Google Meets.
Awesome. Good morning, Commissioner. Is Commissioner Feinstein with us, or do we expect to see him, Mr. Bella?
I do not see Commissioner Feinstein at this time.
Okay.
I do expect that he'll join the call.
Okay, very good. I am Scott Fletcher, and I am attending via telephone. Item B is our new business. B1 is pursuant to ARS Sections 5-227, 5-228A, B, and E, and 5-229. The new license application submitted by Mr. John Lennon on behalf of North Star Sports Advocates, LLC, for a promoter's license. Mr. Vello, you speak to Mr. Lennon's application?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Based on the financial review, we found that Mr. Lennon is financially stable and that nothing rose to any level of concern for a financial investigator. And we do recommend, with that, I do recommend his approval. To give some context, Mr. Lennon hopes to promote boxing and MMA events, and he had intended to get licensed earlier this year to put on an event in October, but he will be moving that on until next year, where he hopes to put on this event in April. And so I expect will be great things. He intends to do his events in downtown Phoenix to start. And so anyway, just thought I'd give some context on that. And again, I do recommend his approval.
Thank you, Mr. Vella. Is Mr. Lennon with us by chance?
Mr. Lennon
Yes,
is
I am.
Oh, great. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time and interest and welcome you potentially to the fold. We need all the good people we can find to come take on the promotion of the combat sports here in the States. So it's exciting to have you with us. Would you take a minute and just kind of explain your background and what you're hoping to accomplish?
Yes, sir. My name is John Lennon, and I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. And my main business is Swage Lock Company. We're headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio, and we do a tremendous amount of business in the semiconductor industry with companies like Intel, Taiwan Semiconductor in the Valley here, in the eco environment around that. That's my main business. But I also have a sports agency, and that's also for events. And going back years, I don't know if you remember a commissioner in Ohio named Bernie Profato, but I think Bernie spoke with Danny at one time. But Bernie, my father and I put on both boxing and MMA events in Cleveland, Ohio for years, downtown Cleveland. And we had some big fighters come out. Sean Porter, Showtime Sean Porter, is an athlete that I've helped represent and back from his beginning. And he ended up becoming WBC welterweight champion. He's now retired. I helped him get a position at PB1 as a television color commentator, and also helped back Stipe Miocic, the UFC heavyweight these are both guys out of my hometown of Cleveland. And I intend on having them, if things get approved, having them as my ambassadors for both boxing and MMA for this event scheduled for April 18th, 2026 at the Arizona Center downtown Phoenix.
That's fantastic. What a
If
great
that
background you have too. Stipe is a great person. He was, I think he took part in one of the first UFC cards we put on here. Good guy, as is Mr. Porter too. I think you'll find this to be fertile soil. This is a great fight town, and I think you can do some great things here. So again, we're excited to have you in the fold. Commissioner Carpio, thoughts, questions for Mr. Lennon?
Thank you for being here, Mr. Lennon. Do you know what event you're going to have in April, MMA or boxing, or and where the venue might be?
Yes, sir. We have it scheduled for April 18th, 2026 at the Arizona Center. If you're familiar with the Arizona Center downtown, the owners of the Arizona Center have a beautiful complex, an outdoor complex with suites and that look down onto like a stage. So the intention is we're going to be doing both boxing and MMA combined with live entertainment and luxury brands. It's going to be a unique event. We're really excited about it. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from people in the community. I'm involved with the Thunderbirds in Phoenix here as well. So I'm getting some of the business people that I know in Phoenix excited about it, and as well as wanting to give back both to USA Boxing as one of our charities, as well as St. Mary's as well, to give back to St. Mary's, the food bank.
Great, thank you for that.
This is
Yes, that's very exciting. Yeah, Mr. Lennon, can you speak to that venue and how big is that venue? To my knowledge, we've never done anything there.
Right. They can hold up to 5,000 people. We're looking at a minimum of 2,500 people attending this. And because of my business connections in town here, I know a lot of the top business people. So I'm getting some big sponsors to get involved with this as well. And that site is sort of, it's a best kept secret. Not many people know about it. You hear about celebrity theater, or, you've seen, events, the big events downtown, at where the Suns play. But this venue is, it's a beautiful venue. And if you've ever had a chance to go down there, I think you'd be super impressed with their outdoor complex. There's a place that we've dedicated for the boxing ring, and then the MMA cage. We also have a stage where there's going to be live entertainment going on with in between the bouts. And we also have luxury brands. So some of the people I know, like Al Molina, for example, he's a jeweler in town. He was instrumental, I know, at one time being involved with Muhammad Ali Fight Night here. He, a lot of these guys are, are getting older, and there's time for some new blood to come in. So my leadership team and I are real excited. Somebody had mentioned about Phoenix in particular being a fertile ground for boxing and MMA. I think when you look at it, it could be has more potential than anywhere in the country, to be quite frankly, if you really look at the demographics.
Well, you're preaching to the choir, Mr. Lennon. I agree completely. It is fertile ground for both boxing, MMA, Muay Thai. All the combat sports do very well here. We have a very large group of passionate fans, and they would take, I think, instantly to what you're talking about. Commissioner Carpio, any other questions?
No, I thank you for choosing our state, and I hope we fill the entire 5,000, not just the 2,500. So, and I think you're correct that we are a fertile ground for MMA and boxing. So I appreciate your interest here. And I know Commissioner Feinstein has a question.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to, number one, make sure that you recognized I was here. I always appreciate the promptness with which Mr. Vella runs these meetings, and, you know, being 1.5 minutes late is too late. So I apologize for that. But I'm working downtown here at Banner University Medical Center, which is just a stone's throw from that Arizona Center. So I am very familiar with that venue. And I agree with you. We should add that to our list of places that we can put on great events with this commission. So I appreciate you kind of leading that charge, and I really look forward to the event. So thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate it. The owners are real excited. It's like a win-win because they're trying to drive more traffic through their complex down there with their restaurants. There's a number of new restaurants going in that complex right now. And so they're very excited about it. In fact, a lot of those restaurants want to team up with us for this event. They're all excited about it.
Well, it all sounds great, Mr. Lennon. Now all we have to do is get you licensed. Then we can press forward. I think once you are, you'll find that Mr. Vella is a great resource for getting you up to speed on what we hope for and what we expect. So when and if this takes place, make sure to lean on him. He can help you a great deal. The chair would be open to a motion if there is one.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to ARS Section 5227, 5228, ABE 5229, I move that we approve the new license application submitted by Mr. John Lennon on behalf of North Star Sports Advocates LLC for a promoter's license.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Congratulations, Mr. Lennon. I look forward to shaking your hand, and anything we can do to help you along the way, please let us know.
Thank you so much. And Danny and Arania, they have been over the top helpful in guiding me and my leadership team from the beginning to where we are today. So I want to give them a shout out to both of them. They're real professionals, and it's a real pleasure having people like that can help guide you through the whole process.
We're blessed to have both of them, and you'll get to spend plenty of time with them going forward, Mr. Lennon. Look forward to it.
I look forward to it. I look forward to it, sir.
All right. Thanks again for your time. Appreciate you joining us, and we'll look forward to April 18th.
Definitely. I think you'll all be very happy with the show that we put on. And I think it'll be good for
Fantastic.
all of us and good for combat sports in Arizona.
Absolutely. Okay. You take care now.
Have
Let
a
us
wonderful
press
day,
on with
everyone.
C.
Yes. Thank you very
Our-
much.
Thank you. C is our information report. C1 is our event report. The following event was conditionally approved by the executive director. It was a request from Yuma Fight League LLC for approval of an MMA event to be held at Yuma County Fairgrounds in Yuma, Arizona on Saturday, November 22nd, 2025. C2 is our budget report. Mr. Vella, will you speak to that, please?
Apologies, sir, I was on mute. Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Andrew Hawks from the Department of Gaming will be presenting the budget report. So we'll give it a moment for us to get the report pulled up, and Andrew can go over it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
I
Yes.
think you're saying great, Andrew. Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you for this time today. I'm Andrew Hawks. I'm Assistant Director of Business Administration at the Department of Gaming, and I prepared a budget review for the commission. I want to also note that I'm happy to provide budget reviews at future commission meetings as well, at whatever cadence you prefer, monthly, quarterly, annually. And I made this review pretty long and wrote out everything I wanted to share this time so I don't miss anything, since there hasn't been one of these reviews provided to the commission in some time. But future budget reviews would likely be more like 1 or 2 minutes long. Go ahead and there we go. Thank you, Drew. Okay, so starting on the left side of this slide, the regulation of unarmed combat sports is funded by the Unarmed Combat Fund, which is a sub-fund of the Racing Regulation Fund in Arizona. In the fiscal year 26 budget, the Racing Fund was appropriated $2.74 million. An appropriation is a maximum spending authority, which is not the same thing as the amount of cash a fund has available to spend. An example of an appropriation would be if you decided you wouldn't spend more than $200 on something like DoorDash per month, but regardless of what you set your limit to be, if you don't have $200 in the bank account, you can't spend that much anyway. And this is why when we have budget reviews, we concern ourselves with two main things. Are we spending within the limit, and whether the cash balance is going up or down? And later in this presentation, you'll learn that the Boxing Fund no longer has a problem spending less than its spending authority, but there is a current concern with cash flow. Of the $2.74 million total racing appropriation, the budget specifies that $2.3 million is the maximum spending authority for the regulation of the racing industry, and $400,000 is the maximum spending authority for the regulation of this unarmed combat industry. While we use appropriation to mean maximum spending authority, we use the word fund to talk about the actual cash balances available for spending against the appropriations. And while the budget combines unarmed combat with racing when it lists the racing appropriation, it does not combine the cash balances of the racing fund and the unarmed combat sub-fund. Each industry is meant to generate its own revenues for the regulation of its own industry. The Racing Fund's cash is primarily funded by the Regulatory Wagering Assessment, or RWA, and by racing license fees. The Unarmed Combat Sub-Fund's cash is mainly funded by the boxing and MMA license fees, event fees, and the event tax levies, which are a percentage of event ticket sales. The department is making a concerted effort to ensure that the racing and unarmed combat industries have self-sustaining regulatory funds with separate, accurate accounting. One major step in doing so was in October of 2024, when the department finalized the submission of two legislative and budget proposals specific to the unarmed combat sub-fund. And now we're on the right side of the slide. The first request related to the fund's spending authority requested it be increased from $105,000 to $400,000 because it takes over $300,000 to regulate the industry per year, which I'll break down in the next slide. When the spending authority was $105,000, it forced us to spend unarmed combat's expenditures against the racing spending authority each year, as soon as the $105,000 appropriation was maxed out. Increasing the spending authority was only one step toward a self-sustaining unarmed combat fund, because even when it spent against racing's appropriation, it used its own cash and continues to do so. The second proposal the department submitted was to modify the language in ARS 5-230 to allow the department to deposit unarmed combat license fees into the unarmed combat account rather than the racing fund. This will increase the unarmed combat revenues by approximately $30,000 to $50,000 per year. The governor's office approved the department's proposals, and our chief legislative liaison was successful in working with the legislature and policy advisor to include these changes in the final signed state budget at the end of June of 2025. Next slide, please. All right. As previously stated, it currently takes about $350,000 per year to regulate, and I'll break that down for you. The Department of Gaming currently has 116 full-time employees, only 2 of whom are dedicated to the full-time regulation of unarmed combat. Their combined salaries plus employee-related expenditures, or ERE, such as benefits, taxes, and the ASRS employer contributions, cost $206,500 per year. For everyone's understanding, those ERE expenditures add approximately 40% to the base salaries. In addition to the 2 full-time unarmed combat employees, we allocated 30% of an assistant director's salary and ERE to the Unarmed Combat Fund, as well as 15% of a multi-program specialist salary and ERE to the Unarmed Combat Fund. When we are fully staffed with the 2 unarmed combat employees that we have, these other staff split their time between unarmed combat regulation and other job responsibilities, thus their partial allocation and not full. Next, indirect costs. While not all of the department's indirect costs are partially charged to the Unarmed Combat Fund due to a materiality threshold, the following costs are allocated: 1.7% of the department's rent, risk management policy, accounting and payroll software, statewide IT support, and phone charges are charged to unarmed combat. The division benefits from only comprising 1.7% of the department's staff and saves money by only having the small percentage of overhead allocated to it. Revenues received from tribal gaming, event wagering, fantasy sports, and racing industries pay the rest. The next category of expenditures includes travel, professional development, and rulemaking costs. The department has 4 total rulemaking projects in motion. Unarmed combat is one of them and is being charged for its share. Other operating expenses included here as a catch-all for the other costs incurred by the division. Each year, this may include items such as uniforms for officials and staff and testing supplies. So moving on to the right side of this slide, although the department is taking steps to ensure accurate accounting for the Unarmed Combat Fund's revenues and expenses, due to ongoing cash flow concerns, there are services that the department provides that are not expensed to the Unarmed Combat Fund. Examples include when staff assist the division with events or the financial investigations related to a promoter license. Their time is not being charged to unarmed combat, but to the other department funds that correspond with those employees' primary job duties. Similarly, the Unarmed Combat Division benefits from general office supplies, equipment, and fleet vehicles from time to time. And the biggest cost that isn't currently hitting the Unarmed Combat Fund, but should, is their share of administrative staff support, including HR, communications, legislative, IT, legal, finance and payroll, business services, strategic planning, and other executive support. Of an executive team comprising 10 leaders who concern themselves with matters related to the Unarmed Combat Division, only one of the 10 is allocated to the fund, and it's only 30% of his salary and ERE. These uncharged costs are estimated to total over $50,000 per year. These costs plus the approximate $300,000 shown on the left side of the slide are how we've determined that the true cost of regulation in this industry is approximately $350,000 per year. Next slide, please. This chart represents the amount spent against the unarmed combat appropriation so far this year. The black columns represent the amount spent, and the purple line represents the glide path of the $400,000 not to exceed spending limit. Based on what's occurred so far and what we anticipate occurring in the remaining 8 months, we project total expenditures of approximately $309.6 thousand in fiscal year 26. This includes a one-time expense of $13,000 to roll out a new and long overdue licensing software, the majority cost of which is being paid for by the Racing Regulation Fund, which will also benefit from it. As mentioned, spending within our appropriation is no longer a concern, as $400,000 is sufficient in any normal year. Rather, it's the fund's cash flow that is the concern, which I'll show now. Next slide, please. This chart represents the Unarmed Combat Subfund's cash balance each month. The black columns represent the actual cash balance, and the green line that's trending downward represents our projected cash balance. The fund's cash is projected to run out in approximately 3 months, barring any countermeasures, which I'll discuss last. The fund has been on this downward trajectory since 2022. This is a result of insufficient revenues, resulting mainly from an absence of large events such as the UFC, which generates significant tax levy revenues. And also because in the last couple of years, the department has improved its accounting practices to reflect more accurate reporting of the Unarmed Combat Division's true costs. The true costs of regulation have not substantially increased over this time. The department's accounting for costs has improved. The largest true increase in costs since 2022 are pay adjustments to the two fully allocated unarmed combat division staff, bringing them closer to the compensation of similar roles in the department dedicated to the regulation of other industries in the department's purview. So, next slide, please. This chart represents the unarmed combat sub-fund's actual revenue per year. So these are the monies that are coming into the fund. The purple target line is set at $350,000 based on the actual cost of regulation as outlined in the previous slide. Since fiscal year 20, the revenue exceeded the target in only 1 year, fiscal year 22. This is also the last time the UFC came to Arizona. The tax levy revenue from which was approximately $226,000 of that $379,000 total revenue that year. We are now 4 months into fiscal year 26, and the revenue outlook has shifted from what we projected earlier in the fiscal year. Fewer events than anticipated and cancellations have contributed to the current projections, placing annual revenue between $100,000 and $120,000, which is lower than the previous 5 years. This data shows that one large event per year could be enough to support the sub-fund self-reliance, or we would need a much higher volume and more consistent schedule of other events throughout the year to reach the same level of stability. However, as regulators, we do not control when major events or any events choose to come to Arizona. In the next slide, I'll discuss what we are working on in terms of short and long-term solutions. Next slide, please. The department continues to work actively with the Governor's Office of Strategic Planning and Budgeting, or OSPB, on long and short-term solutions for the Unarmed Combat Fund. While the solutions aren't finalized, the department is evaluating its ability to use cash from the Racing Regulation Fund, which is the parent fund, to subsidize the Unarmed Combat Fund to get it through the remainder of this fiscal year. It should be noted that the Racing Fund is also operating at cash deficit, and so it cannot be the long-term solution for unarmed combat regulation. In terms of a long-term solution, the department submitted a formal budget request to be considered in the upcoming legislative session to combine the Unarmed Combat Fund with the Event Wagering Fund. This would allow the revenues from each industry to be used for the regulation of both industries. In other words, in a year much like the last few, where unarmed combat regulatory costs exceed the unarmed combat industry revenues, the event wagering cash could be utilized to cover the difference. Now, while the short and long-term solutions may be these ideas or maybe others, the department will continue to work closely with OSPB and the legislature on sustainable solutions for the regulation of unarmed combat sports in Arizona. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, if any.
Andrew, thank you so much. Very helpful. Commissioners, thoughts, questions for Andrew?
Hello, Andrew. This is Commissioner Carpio. You know, I think I'm the commissioner that brought the problem up with our budget, and this is something that was given to me 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and when I'm looking at this, I really asked for an itemization of our expenses. This is simply a structure, but my question is, I'd like to see an itemized accounting of where this money is going. For example, the question I have is, for example, we have 2 partially allocated staff members where, and it's an expenditure breakdown. What do these 2 partially allocated staff do for us? Because when I attend these events, and I've attended many of them, I see Mr. Vela and Irania running this, and along with the the refs, the judges, and I'd like to know what are they doing, and the itemized list that I asked for as far as the expenditures, because I think that's important to look at, because we are running out of money, and like you said yourself, it's not the long-term proposal to be dipping into the racing fund. So that's what I'm really looking for is an itemization. And then if you can explain to me the 400,000 appropriation, is that something that's given to us? Do we get this amount immediately, or is there a process for us to get this money if we need it?
Commissioner Carpio, I'm happy to answer those questions. Thank you for those questions. So the itemized list of expenditures, including the work duties of the partially allocated staff, is something that I'll be happy to prepare. The $400,000 appropriation, it basically every year in the legislative session, the legislative branch and the executive branch negotiate these appropriation amounts or spending authorities. It's not $400,000 cash given to us, but rather a $400,000 spending limit, and that gets decided and reset every single year. And so that isn't cash given to us at any time. The cash that we actually use to cover our costs of regulation is generated by the industry itself. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, so when we get the 400,000, is it, I mean, how do we get that money? Is it allocated by the Department of Gaming? Do we have to request it at a commission meeting? I don't understand. And it just seems like, I think the Department of Gaming, since we're under them and they control our financial obligations we have, I think it would be great if the Department of Gaming would give us some time to speak to them about what we should ask for, and consult with the commissioners and our executive director as to what should be appropriated, because it seems like we're just running under the purview of the Department of Gaming, but we have no control. Again, we're a regulatory agency and we can't get any events here. I mean, why can't we get events here? Why aren't they coming here? Is there issues with our state, with our regulation? What support do we have from other entities in the government to get events here? I mean, I was really excited to see the Mr. Lennon to start this event here, but those are just, I think, like, we have to have a more open meeting with the Department of Gaming to figure this all out. And that's why I asked, when we're running out of money and I'm appointed to run a commission that's running out of money, I'm concerned. And it just feels like we should have a little more communication as to budgeting and structure and how things are done, because it just seems like, okay, you guys are boxing MMA and this is what you get, but I still don't understand the process.
Maybe I can interject a little bit here, give you a little bit of history, everyone. This, I think, is year 16 that I've been on the commission. Except for 2022, we haven't come close to that target number. We were never tasked with being self-funding. It's a nice idea, but we're regulators. Our job is to ensure the fairness of events and the safety of participants. And we are going to fall short of that target in most years. In 2024, we're named Commission of the Year in the world, and our revenue was $151,000. That was a bumper crop year. We had many, many world title fights here in town, and that's the kind of revenue I think we can expect. So I think the expectation that we pay our own way, I'd love to see us do that. I'd love 2022. UFC events are getting, especially the ones like this one, which was a numbered event, a pay-per-view event, they're getting harder and harder to get. They're taking place in Las Vegas, they're taking place in Saudi Arabia, and there's a couple, 3 that might land in North America in any one year. So wanting to get one of those every year is not going to happen, no matter who you are. So that's just some perspective as to where we've been and where we're going. We're very busy, but again, our job is to regulate, is to ensure the safety of events and the safety of our participants, period. If we make money off that, that's fantastic too, but it's highly unlikely. Commissioner Feinstein, what are your thoughts?
Well, I also have been a commissioner for some time and appreciate the great work of this commission. And this is the first instance where I've been involved in these types of budget or financial discussions as it relates to the performance of the commission. And like Commissioner Carpio, I'm happy to take on that responsibility if the state or Racing and Gaming says, you're now accountable for this. That's I think all of the commissioners serve in various roles where we have accountability for P&Ls, and so I'm happy to take that on. But I agree with Commissioner Carpio that not only do I need an itemized breakdown of the expenses, but I also need an itemized breakdown of the revenue. And I also, I think this is kind of a push-pull. Yeah, we can certainly look at the expenses and cut expenses and figure out what we could do to better meet whatever financial goals we're given by the state. But also I agree with Commissioner Fletcher that there are things we could do to attract more events in terms of our receptivity, our ability to adapt rule sets that other different types of combat sports that want to come to the state would need in order to put on events here. So I welcome the transparency and the ability for us to own some of this. And if there are financial goals that we need to meet, I think we as a commission are very interested in collaborating to meet those. I do have some concern about, just from a public perception standpoint, kind of completely merging combat sports and gambling. I think there's a perception and a long history of the association between combat sports and gambling that I think there just needs to be clear lines between those two entities, just based on the history of our sport. And I just think that's another thing to consider going forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Andrew, could you speak to that? This potential relationship with event wagering, how would that be structured if it was to take place?
I think that's the next agenda item.
Perfect. Perfect lead in. Let's finish this up. Commissioners, Mr. Vella, what are the thoughts you guys have about what we're talking about right now?
And Mr. Chairman, again, this is Commissioner
Yes.
Carpio. I simply, just like was articulated earlier, I think an itemized list of accounting of revenue and what we spend, I think that's important for us to look at and be given, so we can run a good commission. And yes, we're regulators and we have no control who comes here, but I also want to have some discussion as to who's going to support this commission and how can we get that done. Yeah, the UFC's gotten to bigger, better things, but there's bare knuckle, PFL. There's several entities out there that can be here, and I can't reach out to them because we're regulators. But who can, and how to make that happen? Whether it's budgeting or getting revenue here, that's the structure that I need to understand and figure out. But in the meantime, if we get the itemization so we can cut costs or figure this out, I think that's the first thing. And I think those are my concerns. And I appreciate the Department of Gaming and allowing us that, giving us this information. And I appreciate the Department of Gaming giving us a $400,000 appropriation. But I think we still have to do our due diligence and figure this out. And I look forward to Mr. Andrew Hawk's itemization.
Perfect. Thank you, Commissioner. Danny, Andrew, is it possible to get a little bit deeper dive into expenses and revenues and the like? I appreciate Commissioner Carpio spearheading this thing, and a deep dive would be very helpful, I think, if you can.
Director Johnson has something.
Thank you. Commissioner Feinstein, other thoughts?
None from me, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Director Johnson has her hand raised.
Oh, yes. Director, welcome. Please
Chairman,
join us.
thank you. Before you move on to C3, I just want to get clarification on what Commissioner Carpio was asking for expenses, because I know there was a slide in there that Andrew Hawks went over with the expenses. Andrew, on the left side of your slide, I don't remember which slide it was, but Commissioner Carpio, could you, if we, are we able to see that slide and ask?
Yeah, I mean, I have a business. I have a large workers' comp firm in the state of Arizona. We have a profit and loss statement. That's simply that's all I'm asking for, so we can figure out what's coming in, what's coming in, where is the revenue sources, what's the cost, what we're paying. That's what I'm looking for, so I can figure out exactly where the issues are and how can we cut costs as a commission, and how we can figure out how we can operate without a deficit. And then number two is, and Director Johnson, I would love some sort of communication with another entity that can provide us support to get other events here. And I don't know who that is, but I'd love to have that communication with other directors or regulators or whatever you want to call it.
Okay, yeah, we can work on that. That's it. I just want to make sure we clarified your request on that.
Thank you.
And then I'm happy to talk about your other question about other support for bringing in events with the next agenda item.
Thank you.
Okay, shall we press on to the next agenda item? Sounds like we were there. Let's do that. Item C3 is commission/department structure. Mr. Bella, will you lead us into that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Director Johnson will cover this item.
Very good. Director?
All right, Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for some time today. You all should have received a memorandum. Our hopes with the department are that addresses some of the questions and concerns regarding the relationship of the department and our division of boxing and mixed martial arts vis-a-vis the commission, and to clarify how we work together. As you saw in the memo, just real brief background, the commission was folded into what was then the Department of Racing in 1992. And then in 2015, there was a consolidation where the Department of Racing and Boxing and Mixed Martial Arts were folded under the Department of Gaming, with the reasoning that there was not sufficient administrative capacity or budget to operate independently. At that time, in 2015, the Department of Gaming had been operating for about 20 years. So real quickly, as you are probably all familiar with, the commission has authority over all boxing and mixed martial arts contests. And contests are any bouts, events, contests, matches, or exhibitions between two combatants, as well as the commission having authority over licensing matters. And then again, as you are all familiar with, at times the commission will delegate authority to the executive director. And so the executive director, as a part of the department, worked within our structure at the department. And so the department has the role of financial and accounting oversight of events. However, there's a lot more that happens outside of those events. And Commissioner Carpio, I know you mentioned about not seeing anybody else at the events, but there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes, right, for any type of regulation. And so the department handles a lot of the administrative and operational support that's provided to the commission in order to support the industry. As a regulatory agency that regulates multiple industries, the department's goal is to take a uniform approach to matters when possible, so that we are ensuring consistency, fairness, and transparency for all our stakeholders. What that means is there's a lot of cross-unit collaboration, and I like to call it our team mentality, where we have units that are working with each other on a fairly frequent basis. So for example, boxing and MMA is often working with our legal team, finance, and other business operations, our public and intergovernmental affairs team, which also includes our communications team within that. So that's in the back end, what's happening, from the department side. Our executive director handles the day-to-day affairs of the division, and of course is the commission's point person. But it's also our expectation that the executive director works hand in hand with his supervisor and our staff, I was saying, on these matters, right? There are a lot of matters that arise that often require additional consideration and discussion. And then the executive director is also responsible for training other department staff to ensure there's continuity of operations, because there is often, not often, but every once in a while, a time where we have one of our 2 FTE full-time employees that is not able to attend an event. And so we want to make sure that we're giving the industry that continuity of regulation. So that's just a quick little overview of kind of how we see ourselves as the department and the division working with the commission. I did want to touch on stakeholders. We are very committed to ensuring that our stakeholders clearly understand where to go for assistance. And so having a team that works to handle matters means that there could be multiple avenues for a stakeholder to reach the division. So the executive director does serve as the primary liaison between the department and the commission, but stakeholders may also reach out to the assistant director or our deputy director. But the expectation is that our staff are meeting on a routine basis to discuss important matters, including stakeholder concerns and areas for improvement. Stakeholder relations is a shared responsibility across the division, and staff are expected to collaborate, communicate, and support one another in order to provide accurate and timely responses. In addition, we have staff from various units within the department that are currently working on a complaint handling process, and that's in response to our sunset audit. And so through that, we will be providing clear pathways for stakeholders and the public to submit concerns and ensure timely and coordinated resolution. So that's just a little glimpse into, and I'm happy to expand upon things, but just, how we see ourselves working with you all as the commission, and how we have our executive director, Danny Vella, as that he's the point person right between the 2 entities. Happy to answer questions or have further discussion.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner, question.
Yeah, Director Johnson, I appreciate the memorandum and the insight to this. And I simply, I look at the statutes and I read them and I see how, the only control is that we control the Department you control the Department of Racing and Gaming, but we have the sole authority to regulate. And my question, like Commissioner Feinstein, is that, I'm simply concerned of the structure, because you're gaming, they're betting on our fights. And I don't know. I mean, if you saw there's the NBA indictments, UFC indictments, NCAA indictments, and I'm simply trying to figure out like what type of safety nets do we have to ensure that we're independent and there's nothing that we're going to be caught with in the future that's going to, cause issues or concerns for our commission or your department or for the state. So that's my biggest question, which is why I asked for a memorandum. I know the AG, I asked for their memorandum, but they would have a conflict. So I just simply would love to have that, protection. And if you tell me we're protected, but how, that's great. So that's one question. And then the second question is, I understand that we have the assistant director and his assistant, and they do stuff that I don't know what they do. And that's why I asked, like, what do they do for us? Because I don't know what they do. And historically, have we had 2 other partial support staff besides the 2 full-time staff? I'm not sure if we had, or is this something that was added?
Thank you, Commissioner Carpio. Chairman, I'll address his questions there. So I think the first
Please.
question you're asking about is the potential issues with having boxing and MMA and with event wagering and fantasy sports. So sports betting or event wagering was legalized in Arizona in 2021. So we're about 4 years into having both units within the department. They do function very differently. Commissioner Feinstein, I hear your concern about if we combine funds. And I think Andrew Hawks may be able to answer this, but literally we're only talking about the financial side of things. We're not talking about how those two industries are regulated or who's reviewing what, right? And so that would be something though that we would need to pay attention to and make sure that we got maybe some information out there about how the two operate. But just so you all know, I mean, the reason that you see, and there have been a number of scandals that have come out publicly lately. The reason you see those is because of the regulation of sports betting. And so our sports betting side, or our event wagering team, they are working on the regulation of the operators that are operating legally in Arizona. And so there's integrity monitoring that's in place, and all these checks and balances, right, to make sure that if there ever is a scandal, that it gets caught. And so that's something that's separate that our team works with, and make sure that the operators that operates event wagering in the state of Arizona have their checks and balances in place. Now, from the boxing and MMA world, we are helping facilitate an event, right? So I think maybe we'd be looking at a scenario, Commissioner Carpio, where you're saying, what if there was a combatant or a judge that, had some insider dealings or through an event or something like that, a fight or something like that. The boxing and MMA division, working with the commission, would be able to take whatever regulatory actions or licensee actions that you can for your licensees, right? And so that would be its own separate regulatory process. Whereas again, from the event wagering world, our team is just regulating the operator, the DraftKings, the FanDuel, the Fanatics, those type of operators, and making sure that they have all of their integrity monitoring and checks and balances in place. And so there's, I do see in the regulatory world that there's a clear separation as what the duties of those two units are. But I do recognize that if the boxing and MMA fund is under the event wagering fund, that's more of a perception issue that we would have to make sure that we are making clear that there isn't this crossing of regulatory duties, and that this is just in order to fund the boxing and MMA regulatory industry.
And thank you, Director Johnson, this Commissioner Carpio. And the problem is I feel like both units report to the same deputy director, and she gets to call the shots on both sides for everything under this structure. And that's my concern, that she serves the deputy director serves as a director of Racing Commission and reports to you. And I just feel like Mr. Vela should be reporting to you directly to avoid the having the deputy director call the shots on both sides. And that's what I'm concerned about, because under this structure, it can be, it's not seen. I think besides Indiana, we're the only other state that does this.
So Commissioner Carpio, just to clarify, the deputy director wouldn't be, if there were something like that incident that I just discussed to occur, the deputy director, there's no real decision on the event wagering side as to what we're doing. It's really from the boxing and MMA side, whether you're taking action on a licensee, did they violate a rule? Then from the event wagering side, again, we just regulate the operators to make sure that they have everything in place. And so there, again, I don't see where there's decisions that would be, she wouldn't be faced with two units coming up and asking, the same question. Like, she's not making decisions on the same issue.
So for example, if there is an issue involving the regulation of combat sports, whether someone, we should take action on something, that sole authority is over, it belongs to the commission, correct? And we don't have to go and ask anyone from Department of Gaming or about our regulatory authority. Would you agree with that?
So if the commission has licensing authority, so depending on what you've delegated to the executive director or not, correct, would determine what authority you've retained. If you have retained whatever the authority is saying that there's some type of licensing action, the executive director with the division, with our team, works on the fact finding, right? To make sure that they're that the executive director is then presenting to the commission, all the information that we have pulled together, an investigative report, all that, right? As regulators, we do lots of investigative reports. And that would then come before the commission to make the decision.
But the commission holds the exclusive authority pursuant to ARS section 5227 regarding this. And you would agree that we don't have to have any permission from anyone in Department of Gaming based on the statute
Permission for,
to do anything regulatory.
so Commissioner, I think you're speaking really vague. You have licensing authority. And like I said, yes, I completely agree with that. We are not trying to take away the commission's authority. We are trying to support the commission with the facts so that you all can make your decisions. The only caveat I do say is that when the commission delegates authority to the executive director is a part of the department. And so you're delegating authority to someone that's working within the department to make a decision.
And that's my question, is we have the authority, including licensing, rulemaking, and enforcement. And I think myself and the other commissioners, we really do rely on our executive director to bring any matter to our attention. And it just seems that I think we per our statute, we shouldn't be told what to do when it comes to licensing, rulemaking, and enforcement. Because if you look at the statute, it only says that the executive directors, you guys appoint the executive director, and you guys give us the finance portion of this, which is why we requested this meeting. I simply think that there has to be some sort of more communication with the Department of Gaming. Maybe it's more meetings. That way we can dive into issues with whatever issues we have, because it feels like we don't have any communication with the Department of Gaming. And I'd like to change that so we can figure out any issues that come forward, whether it's financial, getting more people here, to more promoters. And I think it's good for our stakeholders too. And you heard Mr. Lennon. I think we have something special here in our state, and I'd like to make it bigger and better with the help of your department or other entities in our state.
Agreed, Commissioner Carpio. I just wanted to make a few clarifications. You mentioned the commission has exclusive rulemaking authority, and I don't believe that's the case. Obviously we are happy to work with the commission as you know, co bodies, right, where we have to work together. But I just want to clarify, I don't think there's anything regarding the commission's sole authority over rulemaking and enforcement.
And I think that's where we disagree respectfully. And that's why I asked for the Attorney General to look at this structure, because I do believe under AR section 5227, we do have the exclusive authority. And that's why I asked for a memo. This is an internal memo by the Department of Gaming. I feel like we do need an independent eyes on this, just so we can be told, hey, this is fine or this is not fine. Because I feel like this is simply a memo to describe what you just told us. You disagree with me, but I'm looking at the statute here, and I don't know. That's why I wanted an actual memo from the AG, and if the AG has a conflict, I believe they have to hire outside counsel to tell us.
Okay, Commissioner Carpenter, I just real quickly, 5227 is what we put in the memo. So there's no disagreement there. The sole direction, management, control, and jurisdiction over contests. If you look at 5226, the director shall adopt rules. So that's where it talks about rules. I didn't know that there was a request for the AG to do a memo on this, and I can see maybe where they think there was a conflict, not knowing exactly what the request was. I don't think I've seen in my time here that we're butting heads at all. It's more so we're working in conjunction together. But if there are requests, that's through the executive director. He's our conduit. Danny does a good job, right, of going to commission. But if there are requests, they need to come back to the department, and we're happy to, have communication and continue the discussion. But I think, there is a little, sounds like this.
Well, there was requests, and I know Mr. I sent him an email. He passed it to the higher ups, and nothing was done. So I think that'd be great for us. Just because I'm scared about the structure and what's going on in our world and the indictments going on, and I appreciate that you are willing to do that and request that.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of a email that went out, so we'll check back. I think it's more so for the AG's office. I don't want to speak for them, making clear what the request is, and whether they see this as a commission department conflict versus a clarification, right, of making sure that everybody understands what our alignment is and what our duties are. But again, from the department's perspective, this can all work. We all are supposed to work together, right, as a team. And I'm always available if, the commissioners have questions and want to ask specific questions about the department. I will make time to make sure that you feel comfortable with how we're doing things. And so I probably missed a few questions or comments that you had.
Yeah, just the last question was about the historically, have we had the 2 partial support staff besides the 2 full-time staff? I'm not sure if we've had, or was that added just recently?
Commissioner Carpio, so historically, the accounting did not even account for 1 FTE in the division in terms of expenses. So historically, it didn't even include 1 full-time employee dedicated. And then I would say over the last few years, we had our 2 full-time, Irania and Danny. But then we would also oftentimes allocate if folks were assisting with different events and things like that, right? I would say when I made an organizational change in July, August of 2023, where the assistant director is in the line of reporting. And so that's, again, when we allocated a percentage of that employee's time. But what I, again, just want to say the caveat, historically, the expenses did not even allocate for 1 full-time employee to the sub-fund. And so a big thing that we've been trying to do right lately, as Andrew Hawks mentioned, was make sure that we're cleaning up our accounting and actually really looking at what the regulation of the industry entails to make sure that we're being clean with our accounting.
Thank you, Director Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Director. Very helpful. It's been a long time since we've pulled the curtain back and taken a hard look at everything. I have, on occasion, gotten a chance to sit down with the director and kind of catch up, and she's talked me off a couple ledges from time to time. I would encourage both of you commissioners to get time with the director when you can, and that might prove helpful as well. She's been great as far as trying to steer the ship. She's been on our side since day one, and I really appreciate her time and joining us today. Commissioner Feinstein, what are your thoughts?
I did have a chance to speak with the director by phone, and I think that was a great opportunity for us to start aligning a little bit better. So I look forward to figuring out how we can continue to pursue these events productively in the state. And I agree. I think it's overdue that we roll up our sleeves and really figure out how things are running both operationally and financially, and how we can work together to do better. So thank you for all this information.
Thank you, Commissioner. I agree. The additional part-time employees we have are great people, and they've done great things for us. As to whether we're getting the percentage that's being shown to us, I don't know, and I'm not too concerned about it. Again, we're regulators. We're here to ensure fairness of events and safety of participants, and we are not going to be a profit center. So focusing on cash flow too much might be too much. But Commissioner Carpio, I really appreciate your diving into this, and I'd suggest a little sit down with the director at some point when you can do it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like I said, I think a memo would be great from the AG, and if they have a conflict, I think Director Johnson's going to talk to the powers that be, and hopefully we can get that memo.
Okay. Okay, great. Commissioner, thank you. I really appreciate your time and efforts on this. And Director, thank you for joining us. It was good to hear your voice. And we have lots of good things brewing. We have a nice fight in February coming up too. So good things are starting to percolate. So keep your chins up and we'll all get there together. Mr. Vella, anything else we need to talk about in our information reports?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, I believe that concludes it.
Okay, then D is our call to the public. Is there anyone who'd like to speak to us?
No one is wishing to be acknowledged at this time, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vella. How about E, our call to the commission? Commission members or the executive director may introduce a summary of current events, ask questions, and or make comments. Mr. Vella, anything you'd like to talk about?
Just a couple of things, Mr. Chairman. Idania got married a couple of weeks ago, and I had the pleasure of attending her wedding. It was very beautiful, and she took some much deserved time off over the last couple of weeks. And so that leads me into my next one, which was Rise of the Prospects, took place in Tucson this past weekend, and it was a great event. And I give kudos to the promoter and the matchmaker for getting everything in ahead on time. All the fighters, all the cornermen had all of their paperwork and everything done well in advance of the event, which made it much smoother for me, given that Idania Felix was not there to assist. And so shout out to everybody for a job well done. And this weekend will be our last event of the calendar year down in Yuma.
Terrific. Thanks again for a great year. Arania, congratulations. That's so great. I'm really, really pleased for you. Commissioners, Mr. Carpio, anything else?
Nothing from me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time again. Commissioner Feinstein.
Nothing from me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Idania has raised her hand.
Oh, yes. Arania, please.
Hi, everybody. I actually, to add on to Danny's note, I actually wanted to take a moment and highlight and appreciate him holding down the fort while I was gone. I was celebrating my wedding, but he was making sure everything was kept up to date. I actually came back, I had almost 300 emails, and I kind of audited him a little bit, and everything was up to my standards. And so that just makes me very happy. We work really well together, and it just makes me glad that when I'm gone, even if it's for a little bit, everything is up to par. So I just want to say shout out to Danny.
Shout out to Danny. And congrats to you again.
And because she did the same when I was gone.
Well, neither of you are allowed to leave ever again. Okay, let's get that straight. I don't like this one-man band thing, but you're both great, and we can't thank you enough for another great year.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let's press on to F, the announcement that the next regularly scheduled commission meeting will be held virtually via Google Meets at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, December 17th, 2025, and is subject to change based on a quorum. G is an adjournment.
If I
Yes.
may interject, I just wanted to
Please.
notify you that there were a couple of items that did not make it onto today's agenda. And so I will be circulating to coordinate a special meeting for next week, ideally next week, but given the holiday, we'll see if we can make it work.
Okay, very good. You'll be reaching out here shortly, I would hope. Okay, great.
Sure.
G, adjournment. Is there a motion for such?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. We are adjourned. Thank you all for your time and efforts.